Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Kietzman, your humble host, with the announcement that summer has been canceled. It's not happening for us this year. What a washout of a Memorial Day weekend, continuing into your gloomy Tuesday. We're going to try to bring a couple of rays of sunshine to your day today. As Pete has done all morning long, we'll get through this. Wow, what a strange Memorial Day weekend. We will talk a lot about it because, well, I was able to gather a lot of information this weekend, getting ready for podcasts and radio shows because most of the things that we would do this time of year were not available to us to do. So we're going to have fun. We'll start the show in a little bit. And throughout the show today, we're celebrating a week of stupidity from Democrats. We have more dumb Democrat things on the list than I can ever remember. We'll get to a bunch of those coming up in just a bit. Also, you heard during the news there at the top of the hour, NPR and 3 Colorado radio stations are suing Donald Trump for defunding NPR. Good luck on that one. College football is in chaos as now the commissioners of the 4 big conferences are taking shots at each other. And America's sweetheart, you remember her? Mary Lou Retton? She had a real serious health problem a couple of years ago. She worked her way back from that, and now she's in trouble with the law, America's sweetheart. It is all ahead on this episode of Uncanceled. We'll start with a couple of the stupid things the Democrats have done, and then I'm going to play a clip of Mayor Quinton Lucas talking about the stadium issue because he's done a 180 from where he was a couple of weeks ago with Pete right here on KCMO Talk Radio. The week of stupidity, I mean, it was just across the board. I know you don't care about the WNBA, but it needs to be pointed out that this is the only organization in America still operating under the same rules of 2015. Like the WNBA is 10 years behind the time on woke. They literally had a player before a game on the 25th address the crowd with a microphone about George Floyd's death, the 5-year anniversary of. You remember the guy who died of a drug overdose? George Floyd? Yeah, that guy. They're honoring him before a WNBA game. They have the greatest gift that any failing sports league ever had. They have Caitlin Clark. This white girl who plays at Iowa comes in and she's really good. And everybody wants to buy tickets and people are watching on TV and they aren't having it. They're kowtowing to the black players in their league. Brittany Griner, who's a man and black, plays in the WNBA. And this person was seen mouthing on the bench that Caitlin Clark is, quote, trash and called her an effing white girl. That's what they're going to do to the white girl in this league. Racism against the white lady. It's unbelievable. This after another player, Angel Reese, had picked fights with Caitlin Clark, gotten physical, and then after a game made it up that the fans were racist against black players, and she was hearing all this stuff from these white people in the stands. None of it's true. But there's been no end to this. It started with Bruce Springsteen a couple of weeks ago, going on foreign soil, bashing America. But it didn't stop there because Pearl Jam, one of the greatest bands of all time, had their front man, rock critics. I'm not a giant Pearl Jam fan, but I understand why people are. Eddie Vedder took to the stage in Pittsburgh and called Springsteen a hero. And then went on to say, Trump wouldn't respond. This is in a concert. He's just telling his fans all this. Trump wouldn't respond with anything issue-related. He won't talk issues about what Springsteen's talking about. And my response to Eddie Vedder, and with a lot of people who have Trump derangement syndrome, is, where you're disconnected from America is Trump is the only president of our lifetime that always talks about the issues. He's the only guy we've ever seen that we know exactly where he stands on every single issue. That's all he does, and that's why you're upset, is because he is so locked in on all the issues that you never thought of, like Harvard being anti-Semitic and getting defunded, or NPR, which I've been screaming personally for 30 years. That NPR and PBS should be defunded, or at least they shouldn't be part of the Democrat National Committee. And now Trump is being sued by them for defunding them. We'll talk about that more a little bit later in the show. But it's one silly thing after another. And, of course, we have Scott Pelley, who gave a commencement speech at Wake Forest University, which was the drippiest, most arrogant, obnoxious, privileged thing anyone's ever done at a graduation ceremony, where all he did was rail on Trump and complain that the media and journalism are under attack in America. This is what they do. It's been an epic week. Breitbart News reported that a former aide to Joe Biden has told them that they all felt like, it was all the people close to Biden, they all felt it was okay to do undemocratic things during the Biden presidency because they were stopping Donald Trump, who was a threat to democracy. It's all coming out. It's all going to point at Jill Biden. Jill's going to be the one. I'm telling you, they're going to have to find her. Joe's a sympathetic figure in some ways for a lot of people. These people that want to stay in politics and stay in Democrat power, they're going to go after Jill. You watch what happens on this crazy thing. It's wild. In our area, a lot of the political machinations that are taking place are in Columbia or Jeff City. And we're watching this as Governor Kehoe is starting a news conference here this hour that we believe will have information about a special session to raise money or portion for the Royals and the Chiefs to build new facilities in Kansas City. The problem they have with the special session is if it's just about that, it will fail. So this is going to be one big, beautiful special session. Here's what else other Democrats and Republicans want in the special session, depending on where they live and what part of the state. They want abortion to be in the special session because, of course, they do. Tornado relief, money for the St. Louis Cardinals, mental health hospitals, infrastructure, capital improvements, and sick leave. So special sessions are supposed to be about one thing. And a man named Lincoln Huff is a senator, a GOP senator from Springfield. And he said, I don't know why governors love special sessions so much, but they do. And then he said, quote, they usually go like crap, unquote. That's what they're all thinking heading into this thing. We'll find out from Governor Kehoe exactly what he has in mind. But in Kansas City, our Mayor Kehoe has done, I like the fact that Mayor Kehoe, and I always say this, he appears to be a relatively transparent and forthright guy. And I judge some of this by his emotions and the way that he speaks. And a few weeks ago, he was on with Pete, and he couldn't have sounded more positive, like lock, stock, and barrel guaranteeing that both teams are going to stay in Kansas City, Missouri. He was optimistic about it. He had posted a video over the weekend on a live stream. He does these things, takes questions on the weekend, and he did this again this past weekend and was again asked about the stadiums. And it was a completely different tone. Now, the words here matter because he's basically saying we're not going to beg them to stay. That's the meat, that's the crux of the words here. But listen to his tone throughout this as Mayor Kehoe is making it sound like he might be ready to move on from these teams.
What I'm going to say about this. Kansas City, I think, will continue to have a robust conversation with both teams about them staying in this community. I think our community is better with both teams within city limits. I'm a supporter of downtown baseball. I think it makes sense. I think when you look at walkability, density, all those things are good. And I certainly think that people can get around actually downtown a little bit better, right? There was a game out, and I love every part of the city, don't get me wrong. So I love Truman Sports Complex. I love what it's about, and I expect and hope the Chiefs stay there forever, right? But I think that with 81 nights a year, there are good opportunities for baseball downtown, that engagement, having people all about. But what Kansas City is going to do is put forward a good offer, but we're going to be responsible. We're going to be responsible to our taxpayers. We're going to make sure that we do something that is fiscally responsible, that's responsible from an infrastructure perspective. And, we're going to talk, we're going to fight for them, but, we're not beggars. And so I love my teams. Loved our team since I was a little kid. Proud of them, proud to have them in Kansas City. I think they're a key part of our brand. But we are also going to make sure that we share what is important, but also that we continue to do the important work of government each day.
Mayor Kehoe says we're not going to beg the Royals and Chiefs to stay in Kansas City, Missouri. His tone to me sounded like he knew something that he's not saying. He's got some information about where this thing is headed and what could be happening here over the next couple of weeks, and it didn't sound like maybe he felt great about that. But maybe it would be great. I think he likes the Washington Square Park site myself. I think that's the one he's advocating for, but he's not going to beg them to do it. So, all right, Mark has forwarded this to me. Governor Kehoe in Jeff City has announced his special stadium to dedicate resources to Missourians affected by storms since March, a stadium deal to entice the Chiefs and Royals to stay in Missouri, and take another look at some budget items that did not pass. Lawmakers return on Monday. So the special session will start on Monday. It's going to be tornado relief, storm relief, stadium deals for the Chiefs and Royals, and another look at budget items that did not pass. So there's going to be a lot in this special session, and I don't think they break those out. I think it's all going to be together. And a lot of that storm damage, I think they estimated there was well over $1 billion done in the St. Louis area. A lot of that storm damage in the St. Louis area, that's how you get the St. Louis people to vote on the Royals and Chiefs. You just give them money. It's hard. I'm not bad mouthing Missouri. It's a complicated state in Jeff City. It's not complicated, from the senators or the presidential vote or anything. It's a very red state. But these metropolitan areas complicate things and what they want. And these cities, we can sit here and talk about Kansas and Missouri and the state line and a truce and rivalries. I think that's times 10 in Missouri. I think the St. Louis area, the east side politicians versus the west side politicians in Jeff City is a hot mess. Nobody wants to give anything to the other side of the state. It's just the way it is, and it's the way it's been. And this special session is going to be very, very difficult. Mike Kehoe has been, I don't know the man, but I've heard everybody that knows him he's a doer, he's a winner, he's a consensus builder. It's a GOP state. He's a GOP governor. He ought to be able to pull together and figure something out with his own coalition. He's got it all sitting right there to pull this off, if indeed they want to pull it off. We'll see exactly what that is, and the Chiefs and Royals will have their eyes on it this week. 913-408-7957. That's 408-7957. If you'd like to be on the air, we can talk with you next. This is Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio.
From Overland Park to Oak Grove, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
So I guess what we've learned this morning from Mike Kehoe is that if the Chiefs and Royals stay in Missouri, we can thank tornadoes? I mean, literally, this is how government works. Mark, you're a big fan of this type of stuff, aren't you?
It is kind of interesting to me.
So we get tornadoes and there's damage, and the way to pass the Royals and Chiefs getting funding is to throw tornado relief in there, and then everybody has to vote for it.
Tornadoes saving the Chiefs and Royals was not on my bingo card, but here we are.
I mean, government. What else can you say? Government. All right, you heard at the top of the hour, NPR and the CEO, this lady, Maher, M-A-H-E-R, just like Bill Maher. She's the CEO, and she, along with 3 Colorado radio stations, have filed lawsuits against Donald Trump, claiming the First Amendment has been broken here by him defunding NPR and PBS. Let me first just say this. Let's have this lawsuit. I'd like to see him win on those grounds. He's the president of the United States. These are government-funded agencies. And I love these lawsuits that say that the government doesn't have the ability to defund government agencies. I mean, that's and you don't ever use like executive powers here or constitutional whatever. You go after something that's completely vague like free speech. So Donald Trump takes money away from NPR and PBS, and he's violating free speech? That's what they're claiming. Freedom of the press and freedom of speech with the defunding. Well, okay, that's easy. How about this, Trump? How about you fire her and find a new CEO that's like, oh, I don't know, let's put Alex Jones in there. Let's go make Alex Jones or Steve Bannon the CEO of NPR and PBS and see how that goes for them. Would they rather try it that way, or would they rather keep going the way they are and try to raise their own money? Because you could do a lot worse things to NPR and PBS than defund them, although it's a great, great place to start. So that's what they're going to do. But here's the world these people live in. This is the worst thing you're going to hear this week. If you thought Mayor Q sounded a little defeated, listen to how arrogant Scott Pelley sounds from CBS. CBS is being sued by Donald Trump for $10 billion, and now it's 20. He's just raised it. He's like, I feel like I'm going to win. Let's make it 20. They're going to settle because there's a merger taking place. You know all this stuff with 60 Minutes. Scott Pelley seems to be the front man for the network that is really upset with Donald Trump and how this is going. So they ask him to do what? Come speak at Wake Forest's graduation. What an honor. Graduation and commencement speeches are about the graduates, not about your vindictive attitude toward Donald Trump or your profession being under attack. But Pelley couldn't stand it. He had to talk about himself and his industry to a whole bunch of graduates that must have been sitting there thinking, what does this have to do with me and the next phase of my life? The words are important here. Pelley is wrong on these issues. He says a lot of things that are not true, okay? We can get to those. But listen to his tone and ask yourself this question. If you were going to see Guy Benson on June 12th with me and Pete and the gang from KCMO Talk Radio, and you were sitting at Scott Pelley's table, could you make it through dinner with this man?
But in this moment, this morning, our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. Universities are under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. And insidious fear is reaching through our schools, our businesses, our homes, and into our private thoughts. The fear to speak in America. Power can rewrite history with grotesque, false narratives. They can make criminals heroes and heroes criminals. Power can change the definition of the words we use to describe reality. Diversity is now described as illegal. Equity is to be shunned. Inclusion is a dirty word. This is an old playbook, my friends. There's nothing new in this.
I mean, Scott Pelley from CBS News, he's the kind of guy that if there was an auction to have play golf with him or let's auction off a round of golf with Scott Pelley, you would literally want to win the auction to not play with him. That's it. I want to make sure I don't get roped in to hanging out with this guy for 4 hours. I can't remember the last time I heard anybody sound that completely and utterly arrogant about their situation, their livelihood, their whatever, because of what he's railing on, and that is truth and free speech. History will remember the Donald Trump era of the United States very well for allowing free speech, clearing the road to get rid of groupthink or media management over what's proper to think and not to think. The biggest way to see where this is broken down is in our woke culture, and we're seeing it in places all over. I mentioned at the top of the show, the WNBA seems stuck 10 years ago. They're the outlier now. There's all kinds of people breaking away from this stuff. It's happening everywhere. Not individuals that are ideological or have something stuck in their head, but companies are moving away from it. Everywhere. Companies aren't supporting Pride Month like they did before. They're not donating the money. They're not involved in the causes because they don't feel the pressure to. They believe America has spoken, and America has said, wow, were we wrong for quite a while. That the 10 years from when Barack Obama started running for president until he left office, we were wrong. We had this stuff all wrong, and America doesn't like it. And we see it, and we're better for seeing it. And Scott Pelley can't stand it, and he thinks journalism is under attack. Here's what's under attack. Journalism telling everybody to all be the same and to be like you. I can tell by listening to Scott Pelley, I never want to be like him. No, thank you. This is Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio. We're back after the news.
From Gardner to Grain Valley, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Man, I like learning new things. That promo was helpful. Maybe you need to audit my relationships. What the heck is that? I mean, audit's a dirty word to me. I hear audit, I'm like, you don't want to get audited. Audit your relationships. Maybe we'll have to consider something like that. Let's talk about some fun stuff here now and pick up the pace and have a few laughs. This is a good story, and it's from an unlikely source. The American Music Awards were on CBS last night, and they were pre-taped. I think it might have been from Saturday night or whatever night it was a couple days ago. So it just recently happened, but it wasn't live. They edited it down to a 2-hour show because award shows are all too long and rambling. They didn't have too many awards to give out. They had a lot of diversity in the program. And when I say that, I mean they had diversity. I wouldn't watch the whole thing, okay? I've read a review. I flipped over and saw a minute or two here and there. But in diversity, I'm not talking about what they've always prescribed as diversity. Diversity, what I'm saying is they actually had American flags, some country music, there was some good music on the American Music Awards, or something that we might like. Blake Shelton did a tribute to America. They were saluting veterans. They did a lot of different things on here. To me, that is diversity. When you allow the right into your music or Hollywood awards ceremony, that's real diversity. So they did this. They handed out an icon award. I did not see this, but I've read the account, to Janet Jackson of the famous Singing Jacksons. And she says right away, I hope this doesn't upset anybody, but I'm not an icon. We never set out to be an iconic family. We were just a family of people who love to sing and dance. She said, our family's story, I think she was basically accepting the award on behalf of her family. Our family's story is truly an American story and could have only happened in America. Wow. Janet Jackson, you just went up about 20 levels in my book. That's really exceptional. And by all accounts, it was heartfelt, and she meant it. She wasn't just saying that. So pretty cool stuff. Flip side here in the last few days, Mary Lou Retton, America's sweetheart. You remember the Mary Lou Retton 1984 Olympics were in Los Angeles. They're coming back to Los Angeles. She had, I think she maybe had the first perfect tens in the floor exercise and the vault. And she was America's sweetheart. And she was forever and ever and ever. Very popular figure, did an awful lot of things. A couple of years ago, she had a giant health scare, almost died of pneumonia, a rare form of pneumonia. In 2023, a year later, last year, 2024, she went on the Today Show and said she was thankful to be alive and literally thought they were going to, kiss her goodbye, say goodbye. She thought she was going to die, and she was aware of this while it was happening. Well, she's healthy again now. And she got a DUI. American sweetheart got a DUI at age 57 in West Virginia, no less. I don't know. Yeah, West Virginia. Mary Lou Retton was really something. America's sweetheart was maybe one of the greatest sports nicknames ever. That's exactly right. She was that. I don't have the details. It said alcohol or controlled substances. Maybe she's on medications for what ailed her before and her health issues, and she was driving on those medications. We'll see. I would certainly feel better about that. That doesn't make that right, but I think I'd feel better about that if that's what Mary Lou Retton's thing was. College football, I didn't really see this last week. We mentioned here, talking with Mark last week, that the college football playoff is now just going to seed the 12 teams 1 through 12. If you win the break, you get a bye the first round. So the first 4 teams ranked 1 through 4 will get byes, whether you've won your league or not. Well, they're setting that up for the SEC and the Big Ten to have an advantage over the other schools because that's what these 4 conferences are doing. Greg Sankey's the commissioner of the SEC, and if you're an SEC fan or Missouri fan, you love him. He's basically the puppet master. He's controlling college football as best he can for SEC schools. If Missouri's your team, you love this. If KU, K-State are your teams, you probably don't care for that much. So when they made this ruling, the commissioner of the ACC came out, and then Brett Yormark, commissioner of the Big 12, said, well, this won't be good for our conferences. We believe this move is the right move and a good move for college football at large. What they're saying is it's the fair and proper thing to do to have the best teams get the buys. Let's figure out who the best teams are. But what they're implying is, as we go forward, and they both wrote this in their statements, as we go forward, the Big 12 and the ACC will always support what's best for college athletics. Greg Sankey didn't like this at all in the SEC, and he has blasted back at them, and he is very unhappy with what they said. Sankey responded to Phillips and Yormark from the ACC and the Big 12 by saying, quote, "I don't need lectures from others about the good of the game. I don't lecture others about the good of the game, and coordinating press releases about the good of the game, okay, you can issue your press statements, but I'm actually looking for good ideas." Well, when you make that statement back at the other two, you make it sound like you're the emperor and you're running college football. I'm actually looking for good ideas. Who put you in charge of all four conferences? This is going to get really weird because there's a sports commission coming, a college sports commission coming after they settle this big lawsuit that Congress has gotten involved in and federal judges and everything else. It's going to get settled, and we're going to move past some of the problems of NIL. They think they can get to a point where there will be some sort of a structure or salary cap in place, and these four conferences are going to live and exist together, in theory, with one commissioner. So the example here is forever, Major League Baseball had a commissioner and a structure that favored the Yankees and the Dodgers over the Royals and the Rays. But football, at least modern NFL since the merger, has always been run by a commissioner that gives no preference to any of the 32 owners, that he rules only on behalf of the league, that's the mandate. We strive for parity, 32 equal franchises, market size doesn't matter, brand doesn't matter. We do what's right for the league, and that's good for all 32 owners. That's the discussion that's being had here in college football. We recognize there are, in college basketball, to a certain extent as well, we recognize there are now Big Four are going to be together. There's going to be a sports commission, a college sports commission, and there will be a CEO or a commissioner of college athletics. Will the message from the Big 12 and ACC get through in the selection of that person to run on behalf of all the institutions, or is the SEC, is Greg Sankey, for example, going to resign from the SEC and become the chairman of college sports? If he does, I think we know where it's headed. It's going to be SEC-centric. And you can make a reasonable argument that it should be, that they're the big brand, that's where the money is. There's lots of arguments here. But I think what we can recognize in sports in America is that the leagues that really strive toward parity, toward having equal franchises, and in this case it would be 60-some colleges and universities, that if you work on behalf of all of them in every ruling and judgment that you have, we could actually get to a place where there's fair play and equal opportunity for each school, if they hire the right coach, do the right things, to have success, and not create a situation where the big schools have all the advantages because they have all the money and larger enrollments. I don't believe that day will ever come. I don't think college athletics will get even. I think the bigger schools with the bigger budgets and the bigger enrollment will only get bigger advantages over the smaller ones. And I think the days are numbered for the ACC and the Big 12 being able to compete with the SEC and the Big 10, unless the new structure of college athletics is something that I don't anticipate at this point. I'm pretty sure most of you agree with me that the powerful will only get more powerful no matter what they do as they move on. Remember, this reaction to NIL and all this money being spent is a reaction to the powerful schools not being as good as they were. We can look at things like Kansas basketball and Alabama football and ask ourselves, okay, how's this happening? Why did Nick Saban walk away? Why there are rumblings everywhere with Bill Self that I don't think he's ever going to announce anything in advance, but this may be his last year or the next year or two that he's not, and he's mentioned that. He's mentioned he's not going to work forever. Jacques Vaughn's in place now. It looks like there's sort of a succession plan at Kansas, but ask yourself why or why now. It could be health related. There's a lot of things it could be, but what we've seen is this generation of coaches say, I don't want to deal with this. These players are uncoachable. They're making millions of dollars. They're spoiled. I'm not doing this. So what Bill Self had, if we're being honest, for many years was players he was paying when other schools weren't paying, and he had the best players, and he could still pull their scholarship and embarrass them and do whatever. And they had to play for him because it wasn't out in the open. And that advantage is gone. Same thing with Nick Saban. Why'd he bad-mouthing the commissioners of the Big 12 and the ACC, which they did not do to the SEC in their statements. They didn't badmouth anybody. But him personally taking shots at the other two commissioners is a pretty good indication of where this thing is headed. That it will continue to be some sort of a boondoggle, and college athletics won't get it figured out. But those kind of things happen when you get the government involved. All right, we come back. Mark's going to join us. I'm going to ask, the Royals brought up this player from AAA who's almost 28 years old. It's not a solution to their offensive problems. We've got that. We also have a high school athlete in the Kansas City area that's done something I've never heard of before in the regular season this year that I've never, ever heard of in Kansas City before. And Patrick Mahomes is flexing his muscle in business. It's all ahead on Uncanceled, brought to you today by our friends at bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. At Best Offer KC, they're not just buying a house, they're helping people, real families, get through tough situations. People have all kinds of reasons that they need to move quickly. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's professional, sometimes it's health-related. Whatever it may be, there's no drama, no pressure, just real help when you need it. You don't need anybody to come walk through your house. All right, you can sell it as is, no repairs. You'll get a cash offer, and Best Offer KC has never backed out of one. I can't say this often enough. Other companies have reneged on offers to people who are in situations where they need to get moving. And 2 weeks later, they're like, that offer doesn't stand. We'll offer you less. Now that we've looked at the house, no, not bestofferkc.com. Their sheet is clean. Not one place on the sheet of paper can you see where you can write down anybody they've ever reneged an offer. Doesn't happen. They just don't renege on offers. bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. Call 913-338-SOLD. That's 338-SOLD for bestofferkc.com.
Call Kevin Kietzman, 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
I don't know what happened to us this weekend. We got hooked binge watching a show that my wife started watching. And we've seen this before, on the guide, flipping through and maybe watched it for 5 minutes or something. She watched an entire season of something called Below Deck. Are you familiar with this show, Mark?
I have not seen that one.
It's young people, international general. This was called Below Deck Down Under. It's young people that work on these big fancy yachts. And they get like 8 people come on board for a charter, and it lasts like 5 days. And there's a chef, and there's the serving staff, and then there's the boat tenders, and the captain, and the whole deal. And they all bust out into relationships with each other. We couldn't stop watching.
It's one of those addicting shows, isn't it?
Well, they were in some place called the Seychelles, which is off the coast of Africa. And it looked nice, but it looked like it rained an awful lot there. So it wasn't that. But she just kept watching and watching. We're still nursing our dog back to health.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can't really do much. He can't really walk, so he has to stay in his pen. And she put the pen up like we call it the crash room. We crash on this couch and watch TV or whatever. But the weather was so bad. I mean, I'm serious. Yesterday, I felt like the biggest loser on the planet. Like if I hadn't spent 2 hours with my mom yesterday was I should have come in here and done a show, something. I just felt like a loser sitting around watching this thing.
It's all right. I mean, it's one of those days where you just sit inside and binge watch. I mean, it was one of those days. Just rain all day long.
What's your guilty pleasure at your house? If you binge watch something, what is it?
Man, I just go to Netflix and I find random documentaries. Like I watched a Bin Laden documentary this weekend where they interviewed. It was actually really interesting. They interviewed the guy that actually shot Bin Laden.
Oh.
It was pretty exhilarating. I hadn't seen something like that.
You were filling your head with knowledge. I was filling mine with filth. Basically.
Hey, it's fun though.
Is what it was. Below Deck. And she got hooked on this thing, and they timed it out to where not kidding, all day long they're promoting the season's final episode is tonight at 7 on Bravo. And they time out all the old episodes to go right until 7. And then the final one came on. I'm like, we're watching that thing till 8 o'clock last night. What the heck? It was real TV. There was commercial breaks and everything. It was awful.
That's when you get to that point where you're used to being able to fast forward or skip ahead. And then it's like, oh man, I got to sit through this now. This is rough.
Buddy, I flipped it at like 3:10 to watch the start of the Royals game, and they fell behind early, and I had no excuse getting the clicker back.
Yeah, you're like, back to the show
Right.
we go.
Well, they were down 6-0, right?
Yeah.
They're down 6. Like, Kevin, you have no excuse to be flipping during the breaks. Leave it there. Okay, sweetheart. Anything for you. Royals brought up a hitter named John Rave. He almost got his first major league hit yesterday after striking out a couple times. He laid down a bunt to get his first hit. Did you see it?
I missed. I heard about it, though.
They called him safe at first base, and he thought he had his first big league hit, and then video replay overturned it.
Boo. Boo. Come on, give him the hit, guys.
I mean, the exhilaration of your first big league hit, and then video replay takes it away.
It wasn't going to change the outcome.
No, not in this particular case. Shawnee Mission East has a pitcher. I've never heard of this. Now, when I was in high school, we beat up on Shawnee Mission East. Shawnee Mission North's only state championship in baseball was 1982. The only one. Long time ago. You weren't even probably around. It's all good. But they didn't have at Shawnee Mission East a pitcher named Michael Winter. Michael Winter just completed the regular season at Shawnee Mission East without giving up an earned run.
Wow. Is he going straight to the league?
Well, the scouts are there every game.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would joke and say, if you want to see him pitch here in the postseason or somewhere this summer, get there early because the scouts get all the good seats. There is a controversy over a run that he gave up that they initially called an earned run, but I think they're changing it, that there was an error on the play. I don't know the specifics of this.
So he might not even have an earned run this year.
I believe there's none. I believe everybody is saying that, they had some, sophomore bat girl keeping score that day and considered it an earned run for whatever reason. But they're like, no, we have video of this. We'll go back and look at this. You can go back and change it.
Get the official review, yeah.
I'm going with it. I'm going with no earned runs for this guy.
No earned runs, nice.
Michael Winter, good luck to you going forward. Nicholas Plytus, I don't know who this is, but 800 times Nicholas went out in the ocean on his hydrofoil board. Do you know the difference between the boards?
I don't.
I don't either. I've heard of longboard.
Mm-hmm.
This is a hydrofoil board, so I don't know what that is. But this is a board that you surf on, and not like the one that you see like skis, like your feet go into these things. No, you should your bare feet on the board. 800 times over the last couple of years. He has attempted a double backflip. Now, you have to backflip in the air with the board and your feet and come down and land on the board and keep surfing. He was 0 for 800 and something. He finally stuck it this week.
Nice.
The only time anybody's ever done it. It's something to see.
These guys are crazy with their stunts and everything they do.
I think the important part for me, the video that I saw showed him several times failing. And sometimes it's just like the first, you hit the wave and you go up in the air, and if the wind catches the board, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like the wind's a huge thing here.
And he just goes flying, right? At
Right,
that point?
yes. But you're trying to create, is it the wrong term, centrifugal force with your feet against the board while you're spinning. To where that old ride at Worlds of Fun, what was that thing called where the floor went out from under you?
Oh.
Finish fling?
Finish fling, yes.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you can do that with the board if you're spinning fast enough. The board stays on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's trying to, but it's impossible to keep the board to stay on your feet. And he finally did it. So I don't know if it was wind currents or what, but anybody that tries something 800 times and then succeeds, you got to give them a little bit of a pat on the back. That's a highlight this weekend. The low light in sports, this little bit of a weekend was in the Indy 500, which was a fine race. The pre-race was the best American spectacle I've ever seen. It's the highest rated Indy in 17 years. Fox took it over, and it was a tribute to America. It was red, white, and blue. They had Black Hawk helicopters come down at the start of the race as they were doing the pace laps, and they had a pace car. Michael Strahan was driving the pace car. Above him was 2 helicopters flying like on the track. Like there were fans higher than the helicopters starting this race. It was an American spectacle. It was really cool. They had celebrities everywhere. And pretty cool ones like Tom Brady, who rode in a ride-along car, 2-seat Indy car, pacing. And he was on live, and he was actually pretty funny. The fans were booing Tom Brady being there.
Of course. Colts, Manning, all that. Yeah.
Best social media post of the weekend. Tom Brady afterwards. It was great to be in Indianapolis for one more successful drive in front of Colts fans. It's fantastic. Scott McLaughlin was the biggest loser. He started on the second row. He's in a Penske car. This is a really good racer, really good car. It sprinkled a little bit before the start. The track was cold, and the tires were cold. So as they take the pace laps, they swerve their car to try to warm up the tires. We've all seen this, right? He crashes into the wall.
Oh, no. Before it even starts?
These
officially?
cars go 220 miles an hour. He crashed at 105.
Oh, gosh.
He gets out, and he's like in tears. He's wrecked. And then he goes on TV 5 minutes later and says, I don't know what to tell my sponsors or fans. I can only tell you I don't know what the hell I did, but this is the worst day of my life.
That's rough.
0 laps completed. And Patrick Mahomes has got 2 more Whataburgers. Joplin and Webb City.
Nice.
That's where I used to live and work.
Good investment there by that guy.
Joplin and Webb City. We used to have to drive to Oklahoma to get to a Whataburger. Way to go, PM2. Let's get it on this season. That's Uncanceled for this Tuesday. The Vince Show is coming up next. Thank you, as always, for listening to KCMO Talk Radio.